Today I'm very excited to bring you this video on how to run out the table in 8-ball. Hey everybody, welcome to Learn Billiards. I'm Mitty Altman, your PBI instructor. Alright, so here we are at the table. I racked them, I broke, here's the layout. I'm trying to make this as short as possible on the video so everybody gets, as much detail out of it as possible. So let's take the cue ball out of the equation right now. Here's the layout. Depends on what league rules you're playing. APA versus BCA. That would determine whether or not it's open on a break, so to speak. So let's say this was the break and I sunk a stripe ball. In the BCA, it's still an open table, meaning you could shoot solids or you could shoot stripes. They don't believe you should be penalized for sinking a particular ball and be stuck with that, whether it be solids or stripes. And the APA, whatever you sink, that's what you are. So again, depending on what rules you're playing. So anyway, all right, so let's say that's where the cue ball is. In order for you to go ahead and make the most out of each turn at the table, and again, ultimately, you want to break and run. I mean, that's what we all want. But take a look at this table, pause it, study it for a second. As you can see, stripes definitely have a better layout right now. I have this little cluster over here on the solids, and my 4-ball, right now it only has 2 pockets, side pocket or this corner pocket down here. So these are all the things I want you to visualize before you go ahead and shoot. A lot of people get up at the table and right away, oh, that's an easy shot, I'm taking stripes. Again, you have to look at the whole picture, all right? So let's say we reverse this, and now the solid is an easy shot. I get the 6-ball up in the corner real easy, 4-ball dead in the side pocket. But what's next? How do I open up this cluster? So what good is running all the solids and leaving this cluster? So these are the things I want to point out. If you wind up being solids on this particular layout, the first thing you want to do is figure out how to separate these 2 balls. Open up this cluster. I mean, ultimately, we'd like to make a ball. Let's say the cue ball was over here, and we could get this shot and get the cue ball to come down and roll into this cluster and open it up. And then I would continue. So again, look for these angles, all right? It's not always going to fall in your lap, I should say. Sometimes you have to create the angles, being on the correct side of the ball to break that up. This would be the incorrect side. I can't get to the 5-2 from this angle. But let's say I took this 7 and drew back a little bit. Now I have a decent angle. I created that angle so I could sink this 4 in the side and hopefully send my cue ball, whether it be straight into them or in the rail and bounce off and open up that cluster. So again, pay attention to the layout of the table. It is totally, totally crucial. Look for your pattern run. Don't just go for the easiest shot. If you can't run out the table, if you don't visually see the run out, what's the sense of, let's say I leave this cluster the way it was. I sink the 4, the 7, the 3-ball, the 6-ball, all right? And I get over here and I can sink that 1-ball. So the 1-ball goes in. Now what do I have? I still have this 2-5 cluster. Yes, I ran 5 balls, but again, now I just took all the traffic off the table and left my opponent a nice, easy layout for a run out on me. My opponent has no clusters. Again, it's much easier for your opponent to now go ahead and run the table and sink that 8-ball because I removed all the traffic for him. So again, The run out wasn't there for me. I did not break up this cluster soon enough, and this is what I wound up with. So again, you must pay attention to where these clusters are. Try to break them up early. All right, so let's say this was the shot. What I want to do is try to break the cluster up and play as good of a safety as possible. So if I was able to roll up here, let me hit that a little harder, roll up here and separate that and somehow get my cue ball to where it's a much more difficult shot. Now, the only shot they basically have from right here is banking that 9 ball into this corner. It can't go into this corner because it won't pass the 8. So I played a safety, I separated my cluster, my trouble, and I left them a difficult shot. So these are the things that I want you to look for. Again, I know I'm being repetitive about it, but these simple little things will totally help you in improving your game, bringing it to the next level, and have way more opportunities at the table. You have to create them. They're not always just there, perfectly laid out for you. You know, that's extremely rare. So again, look at those clusters, figure out an angle how you could sink one of your balls and get into that cluster, you know, to open it up. If you can't sink a ball and then get into your cluster, then go ahead and figure out a way to play it safe to where you can open it up, like I said, so you'd open it up somehow and leave your opponent a much more difficult shot. Now this is a bad example, just to get an easy shot on the 10, but you saw from the previous one, if I was able to get it like that, now they're blocked on every ball on the table except the 9, and again, they're back to that bank shot. So, you know, I'm just moving them around to give you the general idea of what to look for, when to approach these issues. Again, any clusters on the table or even a troubled ball. Let's say the 2 is frozen to that 13 ball. That's a trouble ball for me. Where does the 2 ball go? Right now it doesn't go anywhere. So I have to look at how do I get into that 2 ball. You know, if my cue ball was over here and had a decent angle on it, I could shoot this 5 into the corner and get the cue ball to roll up into that 2 and open it up and hopefully leave me a shot. Again, I have to create the opportunity for myself, and this is what you're looking for. So go ahead, next time you play, look at the table, figure out, again, whether you're playing BCA rules, you know, APA rules, and or even bar rules. So once you know whatever I sink, that's what I am, or BCA, I have my choice after I sink a ball on the break of what I want to be, you know, high, low, solid stripes, call them whichever you want. So once I determine that, what I'm doing, I should say prior to that, is I'm looking at the entire table and saying, okay, if I'm playing APA, I sink a solid, I'm a solid, that's it, I have no choice. I'm looking at the whole table. Which direction am I better running the table? If my cue ball's here, here's a great example. If my cue ball's here on this end of the table, I want to try to get rid of all my balls on this end of the table and then work the cue ball to the opposite end of the table and address the balls on the other end. The last thing I want to do is take a shot all the way up on that end of the table and then have to come back on this end of the table and then come back. Sometimes you have no choice and that's what it is. But again, if you really pay attention to the layout, 99% of the time there's a way to work this end of the table and then maneuver to the other end. So again, these are just, I'm trying to give you the best tips and pointers that I can to put the odds in your favor. Again, every little thing you could do to swing the odds in your favor is tremendously going to help you improve. So even if you up your game 20%, you know, out of every 10 games, that's 2 more games you're going to add to your win column. So especially when you're playing league, that's a drastic improvement. So let's just back up a bit. Remember, after you break, examine the table, stand back. Don't just rush the shoot. Don't look for the easiest shot and say, okay, the 15's right there, my cue ball's here, that's the easiest shot. Yes, it's the easiest shot on the table, but it might not be the correct shot, not at this point. You have to look. Should I shoot the 12 in that corner? Should I shoot the 11 in the side? The 9 down here? Again, you want to look and figure, what's my next ball? What's my next ball? What's the correct side after I take my shot? Do I want my cue ball, let's say, to be on the left side of this 15, shooting back up? Or do I want it to be on the right side of the 15? That will determine the angle after I make my next shot. That's going to determine the direction that my cue ball is going to travel. All right, and creating that angle, you can maneuver the cue ball a lot better. If I have a straight in shot, basically all I could do is stop, follow, and draw. So creating the angles, now I can maneuver, use the rails to work the cue ball around the table. I know it's a lot to absorb, but again, you know, these are great tips, especially when you're first starting out. Like I said, a lot of people just jump, look for the easiest shot. Please don't do that. Pay attention to the layout. Look for your pattern run. Look for your key ball on, meaning the last ball you're purposely leaving on the table. Well, let's say I wanted to use this 9 to get on the 8 ball, all right? It would be easy if I had my cue ball over there on my last shot with this angle. So my 9's gonna come down in the corner, my cue ball will roll out in this direction, all right? And I have a nice easy shot on my 8 ball, so I could use that 9 ball. I could use the 10 ball as my key ball. If the cue ball is on that end of the table, my 10 ball was the last ball on the table, I could just straight down into the corner pocket, have my cue ball follow, and then I have a nice easy shot into this corner pocket. So again, these are the things you want to look at. This is how you could break and run, all right? Obviously you got to be able to make the shots and maneuver that cue ball, but understanding your pattern run and what is the correct shot at that particular moment and what is not, getting on the correct side of your object ball, that's a huge factor. And sometimes falling short, you know, a lot of people love to draw. It looks great. Remember, draw for show, follow for dough. Your accuracy will increase if you hit center on the cue ball or slightly above center. The lower you go, the less accuracy you're gonna have, all right? And remember, a draw shot is one of the hardest shots to control, meaning, are you gonna draw the ball a foot? You're gonna draw it 2 feet, 3 feet, and so on and so on. To be consistent with a draw shot, extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. Practice it yourself. Set up, you know, put one ball at one diamond, put the cue ball on another, take a shot, and try to draw the cue ball back one diamond consistently. All right, maybe 2 out of 10 times, most people will be able to do it. That's not good. You know, when we're playing competitively, that's unacceptable. But I could probably stop 9 out of 10 times, meaning the stop shot, making that 9 ball is much easier. So again, you know, why make the game more difficult for yourself when you don't have to? So again, practice these rules, you know, I should say rules, practice these tips and suggestions, and that's what they are. They're from my personal experience, and they will make the game much more enjoyable for you. You'll have a better understanding overall, you know, of pattern play, position play. These are the key factors. I know I didn't take any shots, and that's not what this video is about. This video is just showing you, you know, an example of a particular layout and looking at your trouble on the table and eliminating your trouble as early as possible. That is so crucial. I've seen so many people lose games, you know, and game after games. And what they do is they run the whole table, they leave 1 or 2 balls, but they never broke them out of their trouble area or the cluster. And now, like I showed you before, the opponent has an entire table wide open. Right now, all these balls have a pocket. Even at 13, if I could get the cue ball back over here. Not saying it's easy, but they all have a pocket. And there's plenty of ways right now for me to take so many shots, especially right here, and get into this 13-2 and open that up. And I would do that as early as possible. So again, what's the point of me running the table and leaving that 13 there? Now my opponent has an easier layout. So I just put the odds in my opponent's favor. So look for these things, practice this, and I'm telling you, your game will improve drastically. Once again, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I didn't take any shots in this, but that wasn't the purpose of this video. This video, again, as I emphasized previously, was strictly to show you what to look for when you're playing 8-ball in regards to whether you could run out or not, and different strategies.